Wow, this is amazing! Massive stone mountains with colors in ribbons of ochre, sienna, and umber, and some colors we don't even have names for. Highway 89 down here under the rim has got to be the crazy quilt of southern Utah scenery. And there's a stunning variety of plant life clinging to cliffs as the highway winds up canyons and through lush valleys, crossing stream beds that are nearly bone dry in late summer, but change into roaring floods when spring melts the snowpack. Highway 89 brings this spectacular scenery to us so easily. But this highway wasn't always here. Automobiles were a novelty until Henry Ford's assembly line-built Model T became affordable in 1908. Over the next 20 years, 15 million of those cars were purchased by ordinary folks all over the country. Back then, most roads were made of gravel and clay, strong enough to handle the weight of those new automobiles as they chugged and puffed and sputtered along at 15 or 20 miles per hour. But rain and water were not friendly to those early roads. Deep ruts would form and cars got stuck on a regular basis and had to be hauled out of the mud by a team of horses. There was a sense of romance and adventure traveling by car back then. And this story is all about romance and adventure. It's the story of Jack and Fern Morrison. Jack was born in St. Louis, Missouri in 1891. St. Louis was the fourth largest city in America back then, even hosting the World's Fair and the Summer Olympics. But Jack's mother fell ill suddenly and died when Jack was only 8 years old. Times were hard for this strong Scottish-Danish family, and just a few years later, young Jack caught a train to go work in the coal mines out west in Wyoming. Coal mining in those days was dangerous and deadly. Digging tunnels with shovels and pickaxes, laying rails for the stubby mining cars to roll the coal out of the mines to the nearby trains. America was being built with steel and fueled by coal, and Jack was one of the tens of thousands whose sweat made that possible. But his life took another turn in 1917, when, like so many other young men, he was drafted into the Army to fight in World War I. And like most soldiers, Jack didn't talk much about the war after he came back. But in the Army, he had learned a lot about building roads and rail lines. Now let me introduce you to Fern. Fern Hansen was born in 1907, also to Danish immigrants, in Bear River City, Utah. Her parents' home was a 2-room log cabin heated with a small cast-iron wood stove. Fern was the oldest of 9 children in that tiny cabin, and she helped her mother care for her 8 brothers and sisters while her father often worked away from home. They cooked on that small wood stove and lit the cabin with oil lamps at night. Electricity had not yet reached their small town. She milked the cow, built the fire, and did chores around their small farm. When Fern was a teenager, the family moved to Soldier Summit, then to Springville. While living there, Fern got a job as a model for the J.C. Penney Company. Yes, she was that pretty. One day, one of Fern's friends talked her into going on a blind date with Jack Morrison. It was a scandalous adventure for that 19-year-old girl. After that date, her friend asked what she thought of Jack. She smiled and let out a loud laugh. "I was plumb disgusted with him," she said. Yet it seemed everywhere she went after that date, Jack was there. And who could blame him? After just a 3-month courtship, Jack and Fern were married in October of 1926. We're not sure exactly what brought the two of them down Highway 89 in Jack's Model T. Maybe it was the scenery, maybe it was the adventure. But in the 1920s, roads were being built to connect the newly created national parks. One road under construction would create a loop between Zion, Bryce Canyon, and the north rim of the Grand Canyon. Jack, with his experience in the war, knew that roads create supply lines, and that supply lines bring business. Tying a cedar tree to his Model T's back bumper and dragging it behind to keep the car from careening down the steep trails, he explored the area between Highway 89 and the under-construction Zion Tunnel. That tunnel would be a mile-long hole in the mountain connecting the Zion Road to Highway 89. Jack came home to Fern and said, "I think I know where the road from Zion is going to come down." Jack's homestead rights as a veteran would enable him to obtain that property. It was a huge risk, but they decided to do it. Well, Jack and Fern filed for the homestead and built a small cabin just east of Highway 89 right next to the Virgin River. They started their little family and began improving the property to earn ownership of the homestead. The property was rugged. The land the highway sat on was the best part, but it washed out whenever the river flooded. There were gullies and quicksand, so Jack used the silt runoff to help build up and stabilize the area. They built a gas station across the road from their little home to service the travelers coming and going up and down Highway 89 and on the new Highway 9 into Zion National Park. Fern, with the baking skills she learned as a child, baked fruit-filled pies and treated the truck drivers to a slice when they stopped in. Soon she was selling pies to a regular crowd of truck drivers. Then in 1940, Jack and Fern decided to build the little Thunderbird Cafe and restaurant, complete with a horseshoe counter. Starting yet another new business was another big risk for them financially, and Jack had to take work on the railroad to make ends meet. That took him away from their growing family, but it was just another of the sacrifices they made together. Then in 1942, tragedy struck. The river was an enticing place to play in the early summers, cool water cascading past their little frame home. The two oldest children were splashing around in it when Joyce, age 13, got stuck in the undertow near a large boulder, and her older brother Jackie dove in to save her. Fern recalls that she was working in the restaurant at the time and suddenly had a bad feeling about the kids. She tossed her apron aside and rushed out to check on them, but it was too late. In spite of Jackie's heroic efforts, the two of them drowned. Jack Sr. was still working away from home to earn enough money for them to continue growing their businesses, so Fern soldiered on, running the gas station and the restaurant and tending to the two younger children. In the early 1940s, when America was involved in World War II, everyone had to sacrifice. Jack sold off parts of their land and took work as an electrical engineer on the Hoover Dam project. He also worked as an engineer on the Union Pacific Railroad. They added on to the restaurant and the gas station as profits allowed. The growing traffic on the highway brought more customers, and they were able to add more restaurant space and more tables. The gas station had diesel fuel for the truckers, 2 pumps for the cars, restrooms, and a curio shop. Some say that Jack was responsible for the creation of the famous Pie Girl, and that it was modeled after his sweetheart Fern. Most of the customers have their pictures taken beside this life-size beauty, but for certain he created the roadside sign that advertises those pies. And homemade was shortened to read homemade because during the war, wood was scarce and there was only room to spell out homemade pies. So, being out in the country, the folksier-sounding shortened version was a winner. These days, the family embraces the controversy of that shortened sign as a fun part of their heritage. In the late 50s, tragedy struck again when Jack was diagnosed with cancer. No doubt brought on from his days working in the coal mines, and he passed away in 1961. Fern was only 44 years old. The plans they had made together were barely started. With the loss of her husband, Fern could have easily given up and sold everything. But she was a strong-willed and hard-working woman with a keen business sense, and she continued to build. When her water rights were threatened, and not wanting to raise cattle or grow crops, she built a 9-hole golf course behind the gas station and restaurant. Shortly afterward, realizing the potential to attract visitors who would want to stay overnight, she built the first motel rooms. Fern was determined to create a better life for her children. Before Fern died, she finished more Best Western motel units, remodeled the gas station, restaurant, and gift shop, and updated the golf course. It is now one of the finest 9-hole executive courses in the state, with pleasant year-round conditions and spectacular surrounding scenery. And determined to keep Jack's memory alive, she kept the original buildings and built around them. Part of the rock-walled hardware store that burned down in 2005 was the original gas station. The East Zion Riverside Lodge was built around the cabin where she gave birth to their children. Parts of the original restaurant also still exist in this big, beautiful Southwestern-style building. Jack and Fern Morrison's legacy lives on. Since her death in 1993, her daughter, grandson, granddaughter, great-grandchildren, and their families carry on their dream. The Thunderbird Resort is a monument to Jack's foresight and Fern's courage and determination. Come visit and learn more of their story. Ask about what's beneath the restaurant's kitchen, and enjoy your journey to and beyond Mount Carmel Junction.
Jack never met a challenge that could scare him. Fern only met one man who was her match. Jack could guarantee a life full of adventure. Fern was pretty smart and strong, a major catch. So together they became a force of nature, moving rivers, building roads and rooms and shops. And the legacy they left is at 89 and 9, where the Thunderbird sweet singing never stops. Where you gonna find homemade pie? Is that satisfied? At the picturesque place that lies right at the turn. Play 9 holes, stay the night with the folks who treat you right, folks who care for you just like Jack and Fern. Jack found 1,000 ways to make things better. Fern found 1,000 ways to make folks smile. They'd try anything to make the dream grow stronger. They'd work overtime, walk every extra mile. And the truckers came to savor Fern's home cooking. And the tourists came to buy Jack's gifts and gas. From every corner of the globe to the Thunderbird they go. And the pie girl smiles as all the cameras flash. Where you gonna find homemade pie? Is that satisfied? At the picturesque place that lies right at the turn. Play 9 holes, stay the night with the folks who treat you right, folks who care for you just like Jack and Fern. And what they saw in ochre sands, seeing a stone and umber-colored lands, was a dream they could pass on, a dream that nourished those who come when they were gone. Where you gonna find homemade pie? Meals that satisfy, a picturesque place that lies right at the turn. Play 9 holes, stay the night with the folks who treat you right, folks who care for you just like Jack and Fern did. Folks who care for you just like Jack and Fern.